Well, here we go. Oh, come on, StreamYard. You're messing with me. It won't go big. There we go. Finally. A little bit of technical difficulties to start what I hope is going to be a smooth rest of the episode for Mythic Conversations. We are back. This is a Figura Obscura tradition because we dropped a new Figura Obscura at Stole Horseman this past weekend. So if you've followed along for the last few years, after we drop a Figura Obscura, we come right back here on Wednesday night for Mythic Conversations with a very special guest. I'm, of course, talking about Eric Treadaway. He's going to join us to talk all things Figura Obscura Ganesha. Eric, as always, welcome to Mythic Conversations.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So we've got a lot to cover with this. I've said this, I think probably every time we do this. This is one of my favorite parts of the Figura Obscura kind of process, starting with that drop, that teaser on the Friday into the drop and Dorklear's review. And now these are just starting to get out there. I was just seeing people today in the Cabal starting to post some photos of Ganesh. And that's going to continue. But for me, this is a big part of it, is being able to come on here and spend a little time talking to you about that new character. So I'm ready to do it. I'm sure you're ready to do it. But yes, before we do that, I do have another topic that I want to cover, because a question that's been asked numerous times over the last few months, and I've kind of been pushing off answering this question because I've been saying once we get Eric on, he's going to answer this question because I didn't feel right answering this in your absence. I am, of course, talking about the little secret surprises that were included on the Necronominus figure. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Mythic Legion's Necronominus figure that shipped out to pre-order customers a few months ago now. And I'm not sure who was the first one to notice it. It might have been actually Toy Bro. Jared might have been one of the first ones, if not the first one, to notice it. But he noticed that there was a little something hidden underneath kind of Necronominus's front crown piece. And then somebody else said, wait a minute, that's not what mine looks like. Mine looks like something else. And it quickly became known that there were 3 different little secret pieces underneath the Necronominus head. There are 3 distinctly different Necronominus heads. So take us back a couple of years now for you working on that Necronominus wave. I'd love you to talk a little bit about what your thought process was, and to answer the questions that's been asked, what that's all about. What was the idea behind the 3 different things that you chose for the Necronominus teaser?
It is a while back at this point, so I've got to get mentally in that spot.
Yes.
Necronominus is such a complex design on that character. And he's, it's a design that goes back to almost day one of Mythic Legion's concept sketches and character designs. But it certainly evolved over the years, partially due just to the fact that we were able to get away with more from just a figure making standpoint by the time we got to that figure. And as I was working on the figure and separating out parts and making it so the headdress split off of the head, just thought it would be cool to add some sort of a secret detail in there. It was not something that was part of his design early on, but conceptually it does go back to some of the Necronominus, his congregation, going back to the early years of Mythic. When initially I put the eye was the first thing that I put in there. And really the idea behind it was just that, Necronominus is death. And so his gaze it's inescapable. No matter, who you are, what your status is. And so I just felt like there was something very ominous and very creepy about almost like this is the eye that searches out the next on his list.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when I'm working on a figure, I like to look at different options and just really just start playing around. And so I think it was the mouth was the one that I tried next. And it was equally, if not more so, creepy when that went in. And then, then tried the skull after that, which, again, also just all of them, there's something that's just unnatural about the image that you see lifting up that headdress, and even the fact that it's hidden just makes it there's a threatening aspect to it. Yeah. And so it loosely ties back to the first three of Necronominus's children, and they're the ones that we've known for so much of the run of Mythic Legions, and they were meant to be the eyes, ears, and mouth of Necronominus while he was away, while he was banished. And so I felt like it was also just a cool tie back to those, to where they're extensions of these these manifestations in his head, almost as though, as I said, like the idea with the eye is that you can't escape the gaze of Necronominus, but you also can't escape the word of Necronominus either, because his word is final. And the other one was the Malleus is the ear of Necronominus. Putting an ear in there did not work.
Yeah.
Like the other ones, they were hitting the mark. The ear didn't work. So the skull was kind of the stand-in for it. Yeah. It does represent that third aspect, that third kind of power or aspect of his vigilance. So you could almost say it's Malleus's head, or a mini Malleus head in there. But yeah, I mean, so that's and then of course, as often happens, I tried out 3 different options. We all liked them all, so then we're like, all right, we'll just do them all. And then the idea came to just randomly pack them, and a cool little Easter egg. We thought people would really enjoy that. As they started opening up, it's just a little something, extra to get people involved, and just to have a good time with it.
So this photo that we're looking at here is actually from our good friend Dorklair, and interestingly, he had commented earlier, I got super lucky and opened all 3 variants on my first 3 Necronominus. So, I mean, how lucky is that to pull all 3 of them one after another? Yeah,
that's amazing.
I remember when we did it and looking at the different versions and saying like, oh, which one are we going to do? And when the answer was, yeah, we're going to do all 3 and just, blind box and like randomly pack them. I mean, we genuinely, this isn't like a little insert piece. This is 3 distinct heads that had to be tooled up to accomplish this. So that was definitely a fun little thing that we sat on for a long time before we got the payoff. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought there was a point where I thought Nate was just going to lose it, waiting for somebody to discover it. I think he was literally on the edge of his seat, just looking at all the socials to try to see who was the first person to discover it.
And then we have a company-wide chat that we, all members of the studio, and there's a lot of side chats as well. But, as soon as this started getting discovered, people were posting it in the company chat like, oh, this guy found it and this. And so that was a lot of fun to actually check on that and find it. One thing I think worth pointing out is you designed this and you said it was the first 3 children of Necronominus. I mean, at that time, it was the only 3 children of Necronominus, because when this was designed, it's before we had gone in and written the bios for Belualith, Beradak, and Thrasis. So really, at that point, we didn't even know that those characters existed in that format. But one of the things that I love is that you actually used this motif of the skull with, the hole in the head a number of other times. Cloud had pointed out earlier that it's on Beradak's armor and it's also on Conibus as well. So that to me was almost like a second payoff when people were discovering this. And then it was discovered that, hey, wait a minute, look at Beradak's armor. It's been staring us in the face this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
sneaky.
That's where this stuff, like, kind of like it really comes together. That's where it's just, there's a lot of design that happens ahead of time. Sometimes it's on paper, sometimes it's sketches, sometimes it's a little more finalized. But then there's the things that happen as you're going, and you connections are made, and I see them as they happen, and that like where that's where it like becomes invigorating for me. Like it's you just discovering something while creating is I don't know. It takes it to the next level.
For sure. So everyone that has been asking that question, for more information, for some details on the different variants on the Necronominus head, there you go. There is your official answer. Excellent. So on that note, I think it's time for us to turn to a very different kind of character, right from Necronominus, the Lord of Death, over to the Lord of Hosts, which is how the character of Ganesha is sometimes called. This is, I think, a very unexpected new Figura Obscura, but one that you have wanted to tackle for quite some time. So there's a lot of different things that we're going to talk about with this character, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your decision-making process and your history in wanting to actually work on this character.
I mean, he's just a beautiful character. I'll go through a couple of things here, but one of the aspects of this particular character, this deity, that's different than maybe some of the other subjects that we've tackled. This is a current religion. Yeah. We did the Egyptian gods last year, and that's a dormant religion. This is something that, like, I've always, I've seen statues, paintings, depictions over the years, and Ganesh, it's a beautiful image. It's just, there's something so fantastic about the design and so compelling and so thoughtful about it that, I've just always gravitated toward the imagery. But it's I'm definitely like, looking at him as an outsider. This is so there was, although this is something that I wanted to do for a long time, but also had like a little bit of reservation about doing it as well, just from a respectfulness standpoint, and just from a I don't know, just whether it's it's cool to do it or not.
Yeah. Oh no.
And so we had a lot of discussions about it. We talked to various people who had more of an understanding of the religion and the cultural impact, and eventually decided that we could do this right. And so, first and foremost, like for me, the question is, will this make a cool action figure? Does this work as a toy, as an action figure, as a collectible? And man, like, yes, like it hits on so many notes for me. I love elephants. I love sculpting elephants. I've done many, over my career, much like, minotaurs. There's something that I would, throw into every line, given the choice. So, in just like the anthropomorphic characters, like are always popular, and we enjoy doing them. But there's also just the ornate nature of all of the adornments and the garb, like the accessory aspect of it, the build of the body is something that we haven't really worked with that much. The multiple arms, like there's this. I know like I said earlier, like there's a fantastical quality to this character, but there's also like something very grounded about him as well. And there's just like I said, there's a thoughtfulness to the design. Like when you really get into the reason for why this looks like this and that looks like that, there's reason behind it. It's not just haphazardly thrown together. But yeah, I mean, as I said, first and foremost, does this make a cool figure? Does it make a compelling figure? And I think it does.
And I remember early on, before we got the green light to go forward on this, we were talking, we were looking at the list that we talk about all the time, the Figura Obscura list. And, this was one of the options. And, to your point, right out of the gate, it was like, okay, visually, yes, it's a home run. It's a very cool character, but can we do it? And you said it earlier, and that's really what we discussed was this is a character that is, actively worshipped by, millions and millions of people. We wanted to make sure that we weren't doing something. We weren't being blind to very real cultural sensitivities to make a cool toy. And, we did our due diligence and we looked it up and we found that actually Ganesha is one of the most represented deities in the world. I had read something that said pretty much every Hindu in India has some kind of a statue or icon or representation of Ganesha in their home in one way. It's beloved. I've certainly seen Ganesha at yoga studios and, lots of different places. But we did go that extra level. We did talk to subject matter experts to make sure, first and foremost, can we do this? And if we do, what do we have to look out for? What do we have to be mindful of? I think that our mentality, just in general, of being very respectful and very true to the character for Figura Obscura made it a really ideal place to put Ganesha. And the feedback, probably my favorite thing from the weekend was hearing from, Hindus, was hearing from Indians and people for whom culturally this is an important release. People that were like, I never would have expected a toy company to do something like this. Thank you. We didn't want to upset anybody, but to get that exact opposite reaction and to actually get people thanking us because of it was really, really special. And it once again, an example of, us just trying to make cool toys and being able to do something that's going to make an impact on people. You did mention something that I have to address is you have sculpted quite a few elephants in your time. I mean, you've talked before about the Total Chaos Poacher figure being one of your favorites from those earlier days of your career. One of my favorite all-time Four Horsemen Studios figures is still Ramathor. I love the design of the Ramathor figure. While that figure, it's well known that there were certain production challenges with the different runs of Ramathor, that is one of my favorite figures. And in a lot of ways, you can see some of the cultural influences from Ganesh on the Ramathor figure. So it's nice to see this figure, not as an evolution of Ramathor, but another chance for you to explore those cultural elements, but to do so in a way that's crazy to say less fantastical with a character like Ganesh, but a little more true to that actual religion.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because even all the way back on Poacher, which, Poacher was more based on an African elephant than an Indian elephant. Definitely, although like really, like I say, crude, design wise and sculpting compared to like, what we're capable of now. But it was definitely more based off of things like African attributes and just like the poaching in Africa and, all kind of like tied in there. But even then, people were making comments about Ganesha, where, I mean, it's a humanoid elephant, but past that, there wasn't a lot of like connective tissue for me there. But the Ramathor, there certainly it was more like it's like the ornamentation and design started, going a little closer. But then now, like, to actually just do the real deal, like it feels in some ways like it's a long time coming. And I think, you hit on a great point there in that Figura like really is the perfect spot to do this, because one of the things that, Ganesh is a peaceful deity. And, most action figure lines, the characters are not necessarily, as peaceful. So we didn't want to do a battle version of this character in armor with, a giant battle axe or sword or whatever. We wanted to do something that was, true to the character. So it, until we had Figura, this is a character that would have been tough to fit in. Not that it couldn't have been done, but it wouldn't be as as appropriate as it is here.
Excuse me. So this is a character for me that, very similar to Monkey King, I didn't know a ton about. Like Monkey King, I really was very unfamiliar with before we started that project. Ganesha, I knew who the character was. Again, I had seen representations of Ganesha in many, many places. But other than, really the surface of it being, a Hindu deity, I didn't know a lot about the character. So it was wonderfully informative for me to dive into kind of some of the stories of this character from this religion. And one of the things that we discovered, and Dub 3 is mentioning it here, says being able to turn the trunk right or left is fantastic, being that it has different meanings. That fascinated me, that apparently the way the trunk is, like the direction it's pointed is important. And my understanding was the way that we have it pointed is the way it would be for something that would be more in your household, an icon, a statue or something that would go on the household. If it was going the other way, it would be more of an official, like religious, something that would be at like a temple or something like that. So even something like that kind of information played into the decisions that you made on this character.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you know, again, these are the sort of things like I've admired Ganesh from afar. You know, I've definitely, and so this was for me too. Like I discovered so much of what the symbolism and the meaning behind the design was. You know, as I worked on the figure. And I just thought that was such a cool aspect of this, is that, you know, everything from the size of his eyes to the way that he sits, like there's a meaning behind it, which, again, there's just, on the one hand, oh yeah, this looks cool. This is a neat looking thing. But then when you start getting into it and you know, realizing that there is so much history and story behind it, you know, it just makes the character, and you know, in this case the figure, that much more special.
Yeah, and it was fun for me. So the booklet that it comes with has 5 different stories of Ganesha in it, and one of those stories is represented on the packaging art. So once again, Nate and Tom Tolman did an absolutely amazing job with the packaging art. They absolutely beautiful. But this particular piece of art is something that you find on the outside of the box. And I remember Nate, early on as we were working on this project, this was one of the stories that really spoke to him. The wisdom of Ganesha is the story that we illustrate on the box. And I mentioned this the other day on Saturday when I did a live stream, that essentially the story is that Ganesha's parents, Lord Shiva and the goddess Parvati, they were, you know, on their mountain, and like a wandering mystic had come to them with a magic mango and said that whoever, you know, has this mango will get like this great knowledge, but the trick is it can't be shared. It can only be for one person can have it. So they weren't sure which one of their 2 children to give it to, either Ganesh or his brother, I believe it's Karatika. And excuse me, I might very well be pronouncing that incorrectly. I pronounce English words incorrectly, English names incorrectly all the time, so it's very likely I'm doing so here. But the story goes that they said whomever can, you know, travel around the world 3 times first will get the mango. So Ganesha's brother jumps on his peacock that you can see in this illustration, this painting, and starts flying around the world, where Ganesh starts to think about the problem. His brother flies by him and making his first, you know, travel around the world. Ganesh gets up and he slowly walks around his parents once, twice, 3 times. And his parents look at him very confused, and he explains to them, you are my parents, you are my whole world. Walking around you is the same thing as traveling around the world. So I love the fact that he totally just gamed this contest, right? He totally is like, you know what? I can't beat him, so let me outthink him. And he beat him. They give him the mango, and when his brother finally realizes he lost the contest, he realizes that, oh, maybe, you know, jumping to quick action is not always the right answer. Fully thinking about the problem is sometimes, you know, the way to victory. So I always loved that. I thought that was a great story when Nate kind of turned me on to it, because I never read that story before. So he used that here We tell that story on the box, and it's one of 5 stories that basically what I was able to do was read a bunch of different versions of these stories because they are so ancient. They're all different variations, slight variations of a lot of these stories. So to take some of those and be able to, retell them based on what I read inside of that booklet was, for me, really, really enjoyable. And hopefully for those people that, like myself, weren't familiar with the character, they'll enjoy being able to read those in the package as well and see some of this beautiful artwork.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the great aspects of Figura is that, we have all this canvas on the package to tell the story, and then we put the booklet in that we can, continue to expand upon that, and so there's so much to dive into here, that this is a good like scratch of the surface and kind of like I don't know, like introduction, that you get some great information here, and the some gorgeous visuals on the package, and but it also sets up the opportunity to go in and look further into the stories behind what we're doing here, and I don't know, like that's I like that aspect. I mean, I've heard it with with everything from Red Death to Monkey King. I've known people that like with Red Death, they weren't that familiar with Poe, and then all of a sudden, like they somebody specifically, like he saw the figure and really liked it, got it, and then all of a sudden, like he went down the Edgar Allan Poe rabbit hole and was just like, I don't know, blown away by the stories, and like just completely fell head over heels for his work. And those opportunities are there with every release.
And I talked about this the other day too. I mean, I didn't realize when we released Red Death that Edgar Allan Poe, I mean, he's an American author, and he's not very well known outside of America. Having grown up in Rhode Island, Poe has a connection to Providence, Rhode Island. So, we absolutely read Edgar Allan Poe throughout junior high school and high school. There are ghost tours in Providence where they read The Conqueror Worm and they read The Raven and stuff, and show you some of the places that Edgar Allan Poe was known to visit. So for me, Poe was just kind of part of the literary landscape. But when I talked to our friends overseas from like Euro Legions, they were all like, no, we've never read Edgar Allan Poe. That's not something that we're exposed to over here. So really, really interesting to explore these different aspects of, world literature, world culture. And I continue to, love the fact that there's so much variety and so much unexpected projects that we can bring under this Figura Obscura banner.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm, couldn't be more thrilled that it's, taken off and turned into a successful line, because there are so many of these great characters and subjects that you mentioned the list that we have. There's the list, and then things that aren't even on the list yet that we discover. And so, I'm just so happy that other people, find this as interesting and enjoyable as we do.
So let's shift a little bit. I've got some other art pieces we can look at, but let's shift over to the figure itself. And I mean, we talked about like the cultural sensitivity and all of, the aspects of wanting to make sure that we weren't going to offend anybody, and really wanting to treat this with the respect that it's due. And we did that. But beyond all of that, it's a damn cool toy. Like, it's a really, really cool action figure, and it's absolutely loaded. So let's talk about the mechanics of the figure itself and what you actually built here. So what we're seeing is the full loadout. It does have the two different trunks. We talked about the way the trunk is pointed meaning something earlier, but it does come with the bendy trunk. Lot to really unpack here, but let's start with that body. So when you started working on this project, you decided to make it brute scale, and you realized that you had to go and get some sculpting done. There were a lot of new pieces that were needed for this. So break down this figure for us a little bit.
All right. Yeah, so I chose brute scale because I wanted it. I wanted him to be larger than life, but I didn't want to get to the point where we were ogre scale, and he was intimidating, or I think brute offered us a nice spot to get a little bit of extra size, but without just going too far. And brute scale, we don't.
It should be pointed out, Eric, that even at brute scale, with his crown on, he's pretty much the size of an ogre. So it was a great decision, because he would have been, you just mentioned the word imposing, which is such a great way to look at it. He's got so much presence, and he's got that size, but he doesn't have that imposing kind of stature that like an Arachagor does. My goodness, if this would have been ogre scale, it would have been like 15 inches tall, but by the time that everything was all said and done. So yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to mention the size there.
No, for sure. And I mean, again, this is a Figura figure. It's not a Mythic figure. So if this was a Mythic figure and we were doing an elephant-headed character, the physique would be different. The hands and feet would be different. Size would be different. But this gives us this unique platform to build a different type of character.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately, this guy required a lot of new tooling, more than I initially thought. But, I was okay with that. One, just because I wanted it to be right, but also like a lot of it I can look at and say, well, this gives us something new in the brute scale. So obviously the head is new, the trunk is articulated, the tusks are separate, the ears are on little disc and socket ball joints.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got articulated ears. I don't know if we've done that one yet. And then that connects to a brand new torso, which is has the rotund belly on it, which we haven't done. As trolls, I guess, technically have a little bit of it, but not on our smaller scale figures. And that's got a new neck joint that I actually think is an improvement even on the disc joint that we've been putting in some of the newer figures, where you still get it's a ball rather than a disc. So you get that back and forward movement, but you also get some side to side, and I just like the look of it as well. So like, I mean, he's essentially, he's got a barbell, head joint. So he gets a ton of movement in the head, especially for a giant head like that could really like lock up in articulation. But there's some good movement there. New forearms, because in brute up to this point, we've only had the half forearm, but we needed to do that. So just to get the right look and be able to put all the the bracelets and wristbands on. New hands to get the just to hit the poses. New like skirt loincloth piece, which is very specific to this character. There's a butt plate. Which we realized at one point that just because of the size of the torso, the regular crotch assembly inside of there just wasn't it wasn't filling out to match the torso. So I believe it was Joe discovered that, and then I went in and added a tooling piece just so that when the pants go on, like it it looked right,
maintains the shape.
Yeah, and then new lower legs, and those were twofold. One, there's a little bit shorter just to get more the proportional look, but it's also got a deeper bend in the back of the knee because one of the key poses for Ganesha is sitting, seated position with the 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot, kind of across the knee, which even that has a specific, a specific meaning, that involves, kind of while experiencing the world, like having the 1 foot up, like retains, a certain level of detachment, and like, it allows to seek like, inner self, which is just, again, on the surface, it looks like just a relaxed pose, but there's, there's something behind it.
Something to that,
And so it needed a new lower leg so we could get that pose. And then the feet are new, aside from the fact that they've got the kind of jewelry on them. Also just there's I don't know, like the way like his hands and feet are represented, they just have a different look than what our figures have. So I mean it's a fair amount of new tooling, but again it adds to our our brute library in a nice way. So we really gain some great stuff moving forward because of that.
And that's just the figure body. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff to look at here. I mean, this deity is, typically represented just covered in different adornments and everything, jewelry and so forth. So you really went all in on the different pieces for this character. I mean, starting with that crown, I remember early on, the head is so big that the idea of doing 2 heads, crowned and uncrowned, didn't really make a lot of sense. So making the crown removable was an early decision. But I love the build out here of all of the different jewelry pieces and the variety of display options that it gives you, because there's a lot of different ways that you can position all those bracelets, that you can position those beads and so forth. Both Trevor and Dorklair, I think when they were working on their photos and their reviews, specifically asked me what that almost like bandolier style piece is that's shown here next to the crown, kind of around the crown. So lots of different pieces that get represented just as jewelry adornments as well.
Yeah, I mean, I went all out with that. I just the more reference that I looked at, going from modern paintings and representations all the way back to truly ancient stone carvings. A part of it was trying to find the common denominators because the elements were all over the place. Like I can't remember the number, but there's so many different just versions of this character that mean different things. I don't even I don't recall exactly how it works, but it's kind of like, from what I remember, you might put a specific one in your home for, to represent heavier on a certain aspect of what he represents. And so like, there's different skin tone colors, different costume elements are more prevalent in certain representations. So, here I was trying to find the most common, like universal depiction that we could do. And so that's what's, again, like going through and looking at, the type of adornments that were the most common, and that did go back all the way to those early representations. And so, that's where that, I don't even know what I would call it. It's not really armor, but the overlay on the torso that, is a combination of necklaces and jewels and collars and everything, and that's kind of the base. And then there's several beaded necklaces that, you can lay over the top of that. And then that sash type piece thing, goes over the top of that. And it just, but it's, this, just visual bonanza of, layered details. And in the case, so many of the depictions, the colors are bright, the golds are shiny, the jewels are shiny. Like it's a just, makes for such a striking design.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a lot of fun doing all that. And I do like that, with all the bracelets and anklets and bands and baubles and all that stuff, there was a way that, I had it in mind doing it, but I've already seen, just some different combinations where, it works in a number of ways, even, for the whole time I was working on it, like I was really looking at the headdress being on, but then, to see some of the imagery that, the photographs that like Trevor and Bill, have taken, with it off, like it just, I mean, that's, I love that. Like, that's just, it's, I don't know, to me, that's like the like the traveler Ganesha, like he's, on, hitting the road. But it's a much more, casual combination of the, what's included in the pack. But I like it a lot. Like it's I don't know. That one, kind of hit me in an unexpected way, but I love it though.
Yeah, I agree completely. And some of the stories, Ganesha means like Lord of the Ganas, a Lord of the people and stuff. So this was a deity that, got out amongst people and everything. And, some of the stories of him helping in, very real ways, as opposed to being in, just a seated there where he was being worshipped. I love that aspect here. That really, I think Trevor really captured that. And it feels almost weird to refer to this, deity as this, a casual look. This is his, like, stepping out kind of attire. But it's part of the personality, part of the, stories around Ganesha. And this is a perfect example here. So not only did the crown come off, but also that very large chest you just mentioned. It's not armor, but that chest adornment. But by taking off that very elaborate chest adornment and only using the beads in that sash, it really does give a very different look. And again, that's one of my favorite things about this figure, is that even though it doesn't come with multiple heads, multiple heads that are different characters where you really can mix and match, there's still so many display options within this package, just with how you're going to outfit the character with the adornments and use those different accessories.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I mention here, because it's really shown off well in this shot, is the CJSM soft goods on this figure are just next level. And when doing the research on the character and just designing how the figure was going to work and what it was going to look like, the whole time I'm looking at it. I can't figure out, or is this a skirt or pants or what? I don't know, because I would, I'd look at it, a few pieces of reference and I'd be convinced one way. And I couldn't figure out, I was looking it up and not having a lot of luck. And, I sent my renders over to CJ, and of course he immediately emails back and knows exactly what it is, how it works. And, to the point where I don't, it might be adjusted slightly in production, just, for like a durability standpoint, but the prototype that they made, it worked exactly like the real garment. Like, it I don't remember, like it kind of like comes down and pulls up and then ties back, and it was truly a scale replica of how how that piece of clothing actually works. And I love the way it works on the figure, the way it flows, the way it kind of changes shape as the figure is posed differently. And then, on top of that, there's that wired, flowy sash type piece that, there you go. I'm not going to try to say that, but, but yeah, like that's, CJ came straight back with that. And I was like, oh, excellent. This is why you go to the experts.
Well, that's it.
But I love the sash piece as well, because it adds, like, you can actually pose it and it adds a lot of flow to the character. But here it's almost like a, more like a vest type piece. So it again, like you mentioned that piece with all the jewels and necklaces comes off, and here it's more of a fabric ensemble, which just softens the character.
So it was interesting. We just got that comment from Arthas. So wonderful customizer, been part of Legions Con for a number of years. And he's actually done a really wonderful Ganesh custom. I remember exactly, because we were working on this when that first got shown. And I remember sending it to you and saying, like, oh, you looks like our customizers, beat us to the punch on this one. So that was very interesting to see. And it gives an example of how long Dave Orkin asked earlier, how long we had been working on this. Well over a year since this project really got started.
Yeah, it was funny because when I saw that picture, obviously these are secret projects when we're working on them. So there's like a sensitivity, about the secrets getting out and stuff. And I remember seeing that, and for a split second, I'm like, how did this get out there? And then I realized what I was looking at, but it was, definitely so much in the same spirit of what we were doing that, I had to do a double take. Which is, which is an amazing thing. We talk about how much we love the customizers and how inspiring it is to us to see the level of creativity that's on display. And it's also just sometimes it's funny to see like how just on the same wavelength we are with with the folks buying our figures and customizing and playing with them, which is you couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Well, I've always said, part of my mentality to Legion's customs was always try to create something that looks like it could actually be in the line. Like, look at how the line is represented, how it's painted, how it's presented. To me, those are my favorite customs. I love actually both. I love both ends of the spectrum. I love ones that look like they could be an actual piece and ones that are so incredibly different that they are completely different thinking of what is possible. But for a character like Ganesh, I mean, even we had to decide what color to make this character, because Ganesh is represented in a number of different colors. And that was what was great about seeing that custom from Arthas, is this is a character that can be represented, a deity that can be represented in a lot of different ways, and none of them are more correct than the other. It's just that interpretation. So I love the fact that he was able to do something that was very, very great representation of this deity without us at all feeling like it, we wouldn't be able to do something we wanted to do.
Right.
So just jumping back to all of the loadout for the character, the last few pieces that we'll talk about. So the character does come with a bit of fruit. One of the aspects of this deity's personality is his prodigious appetite. So you added some of that. I've heard Trevor and a number of other photographers say that the additions of things like that in Figura Obscura are kind of like a gift to those action figure photographers. The amount of times that we've seen the clock from Red Death or the safe from Jacob Marley appearing in action figure photography has been pretty awesome. And I have a feeling that some of these are going to start appearing in some photography soon.
I would think so. I mean, they're a gift to us too. We've already got a peach. Now we've got fruits and treats. Yep. Those are great things to have around. I mean, I'm looking at the rat, having the ability to include a rat with a project when the need may arise, like those are great things. I mean, even the bracelets, the necklaces, Monkey King's beads we've used on a number of figures that, on the Nidian, but that's, is made for Monkey King and worked perfectly for that character. But the fact that we can, use that again, again, it allows us to go over the top on these characters and give them their full, their full due, their full representation. Because it's, we try to be wise about how we're investing and, how we're making our decisions.
Well, one thing that we have given people is, I'm sure you are aware of the Justice for Theo kind of memes that are going on.
Yeah.
So obviously these apples were created long before Cookie made Theo cry. But we've got right here in the comments, we've got Jordan from Purple Gang Gang, Justice for Theo, we now have apples. So it seems like that's going to be a hit here. And of course, they also like the grapes because they're purple.
Good thing I didn't do green grapes.
I know. You were on target there. So you did mention the rat or the mouse that the character comes with. That is an interesting aspect of this deity as well, as he is often represented as having a pet mouse or a rat. Some of the interpretations that I had read were that it represents a hardship that has to be overcome. Ganesha is commonly known as the remover of obstacles. It's a deity that people will pray to at the start of a new endeavor for success in that. So very cool to include a character like an item like that. But you are right. Just having something like that in the line, that allows us to just add those cool accessories for characters down the road and sets down the road. And we may already have some use of that coming at some point soon.
Yeah, I can see several.
So if anyone has any questions for Eric, we'll be happy to cover some of that. I love this. This is one of my favorite photos that I saw from Trevor. I mean, his packaging photos are always really, really cool, but just seeing this kind of setup and it really striking that scene there. We get a little bit of the inside panel, which was actually artwork done by Tom Tolman. So Tom is someone that's been working with the studio and with Nate more and more lately. Tom did some of the work on the Necronominus wave, including that beautiful painting of the crowned city in Ethros. Tom also did the packaging art on the graveyard skeletons. And for this particular project, we were just a little pressed for time. So Nate had done kind of a rough sketch of what he wanted to do for that back panel. And then he turned it over to Tom, and Tom executed that. So I don't have the full image to show here in this, but you can see a little bit of it peeking out from behind the box. Once again, a great backdrop for Ganesha. But I love the way that this photo looks. And I remember sharing this with you and, kind of getting a whoa response to this.
Yeah. I mean, it shows off the packaging so well. It shows off the figure well. It, shows off Trevor's skill so well. Like, it's just this, all the elements coming together to just, I don't know, make a really gorgeous image. It's the color combination here is so rich, and it makes the figure look so rich as well. Because I mean, so many of the depictions are like I said earlier. They're so vivid. They're so colorful.
Yeah.
There's no fear of bright colors and
no.
The pinks and yellows and greens and blues and I think that the packaging really captures that perfectly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've said it time and time again on the Figura Obscura projects, but it's so relevant and it bears repeating that these genuinely are such team efforts to see so many different aspects of what goes into this, obviously from, the character selection and the sculpting to the paint work to, the way the stories that we surround it with, the paintings, the packaging, the photography, it's all such a special part of this. And I've said it before, but that is one of my favorite. It's why Figura Obscura remains my favorite line that we put out, because you really can see all of that cooperation in these figures. And it's funny because all of our releases are like that. Like that's there for all of them. But for some reason, I feel like with Figura, they're just so much at the forefront, and it really makes it special.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we do a book with these. The packaging, it has more art on it than our other packages. Figure like this, there's so many accessories in there, so many things that are being painted. Where it's appropriate, we really push the soft goods aspect of these figures. So, I mean, it really just it's a lot of a lot of teamwork, and I think, like you said, we do. Yes, it's everything we do. That is the case, but I feel like this one, it just really like puts it on display.
Yeah,
a little more.
One of the questions we got here is, do you have a short list of any other Hindu people down the line? And that's one of the questions I've seen a lot of people asking, like, oh, are you going to do Shiva? Are you going to do Kali? And there's lots of different requests. And I think for us, that's probably one of the most challenging parts of the Figura Obscura line, is that all of these things that we're playing around with, we want to, all of these kinds of characters and these ideas that we explore, we're just barely scratching the surface. And there's such a temptation to go deeper and to go, and do a lot more. And it's hard to kind of pull back sometimes and say, as awesome as that would be, not yet, not now. We've got a lot of other ideas we want to explore. So, not saying that we won't necessarily ever come back there, but I know for you personally, that is one of the challenges, is wanting to go deeper after you started exploring, but also wanting to explore other ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, um, being able to put all the effort into a single piece, um, when it comes to, moving into a new world, a new subject matter, um, there's something liberating about that, because as action figure people, um, you know, and especially the way we do things, we're all about world building and creating a world, and wave, our structuring releases by waves, where we're 6 figures at a time,
Yeah.
10 figures at a time, whatever it is. I mean, we're 10 years into a single story at this point. And even we work, for other people, whether it's Masters of the Universe or DC or whatever it might be. I mean, that's kind of the that's just the structure. That's the status quo. And so, it's even though it is liberating to do that and refreshing to come in and just kind of take all that inspiration and that energy and focus it into one piece, and then move on to another inspiration. There's that draw to I like the way this turned out. This is exciting. People are responding well to this. Do we do another one? Do we make a return to this? And I mean, it is a dilemma. It is a little bit of a struggle because, one of them is almost just like our nature, and then we're fighting that. But I've also thought about it though, from the standpoint of, if we make a return visit, and some people may instantly point out Christmas Carol. So, there's definitely an exception there. Or even the Gods of Egypt, we decided to do 2 at once. So for one thing, there's always an exception to the rule, so that's in play. But I like the idea of, say we came back with another Hindu deity. I'd want to do it a few years down the road, probably, where it's unexpected again, but also like it's, it would allow, an anticipation to build up, people could kind of think about it. I know, really, I felt like the first one where we got a lot of requests. I mean, people mentioned it a little bit with Headless Horseman, like with Ichabod or Brom Bones or whatever. But I felt like when we did Sun Wukong, then people are we're going to do Pigsy, or we're going to do this one, we're going to do that one. I mean, the temptation's there. There's so many cool demons and characters, and but then if you come back to it, it's also a question of like, where do you stop? How far do you go? And then it's also it's interesting to me too, because there had maybe been a few Monkey King figures over the years before we did ours. I don't think any of them were recent. I think they were, it had been at least a bit since any were done. And then, we got ours in under the wire, I feel like, because, in the Chinese market, and there's been so many since, and then they're getting into the secondary and tertiary characters. And there's some cool ones out there, like they're in like some very different takes. I've seen some that are more comical, some that are more lanky versions of the character, like more acrobatic type versions of the character. And then, you know, again, getting into those second, third level characters. And then there's that too. Like, you know, once there's, you know, such a I don't know if it's a full saturation, but you know, a big rush of character or figures from that story.
Yeah.
You know, that's something to think about too. You know, I'm just glad that we got ours out when we did, because, you know, the rate they came out, like they were all in development at the same time. And, you know, we just happened to hit at the right time.
Yeah, and that's a very realistic concern, is knowing the life cycle of something like this, especially a Figura that we have to work on and do all that development completely in secrecy. I mean, we could literally be right on the cusp of releasing something, and someone could just take the wind out of our sails by announcing that same character right before we release it. So that's always a challenge, and it's a relevant, you know, concern when we pick some of these characters and decide who we want to go forward with. Another concern that we have, one of the comments that got brought up here, is Drunk Gizmo was saying, with the idea to explore, with the want to explore more ideas, are there any thoughts of doing more Figura Obscuras per year, maybe 4 per year? I know there are more sidelines coming, though. And I think, you know, that's another challenge that we have is, I've said to you before, is there any way that we can add an extra month to the calendar? Because, like, we literally need more time to get everything out that we're trying to get out. You know, we would love to do more Figuras. We have tons of great ideas that we wish we could get out there quicker. But as a company, we also have to balance Mythic Legions, Cosmic Legions. Now at, you know, Legions Con, we announced Infinite Legions. Legacies of Mythos is kind of an offshoot of Mythic Legions, but that's something else as well. And as a lot of people discovered when they got Graveyard Skeletons, that wasn't necessarily a one and done. You know, the last page of that little catalog said, you know, we invite you back to the graveyard. So we've got multiple brands that we are juggling. And I know that each one of them has something special to us, and they bring something unique to our company and our community. So I know that when I get questions like that, like, well, why don't you guys just put them out more frequently? That is always the challenge, is like, well, when? There's only so many months of the calendar year, and we're pretty stacked with those releases as is.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I guess if I think about it, technically we did get 4 in last year, with doing the double release on the Gods of Egypt. I mean, that's realistically, like, things like that might be more the way to do it, where it's something a little less formal than just a 4th release. I think, you know, for me, Figura, one of the exciting aspects of Figura is that each release is, you know, it's treated as, you know, an event. You know, it gets as much attention for a single figure release as we do, you know, a full wave, maybe more so, you know, proportionally. And so I think there's, you know, if we got into 4 or 5, whatever, where they're almost like, you know, coming out quarterly or, you know, bi-monthly or whatever it might be, I feel like that kind of special excitement, you know, might dwindle a little bit. You know, and that's why even, you know, why we did a 2-figure release last year, you know, why we, you know, this one's a, you know, a brute scale or you know, whatever the case might be. Like, it's, you know, we always, you know, the benchmark was the Krampus release. You know, it was unexpected in a way that we can't recreate that. But it was like, it was, for us, it was so exciting. And I think for, you know, people who, wake up and see that release, it was exciting for them too. And so that's what we want to at least come as close to that level as we can with every release. So I don't want to, I don't want to, burn the flame out on that.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that we have to remember is Figura Obscura. Like, I've heard people criticize in the past and say, well, this character is not obscure. And that's not what Obscura was supposed to mean. It wasn't supposed to mean obscure characters. I mean, goodness, we did Father Christmas. You'd be hard pressed to find a more well-known character than Santa Claus. I remember going back to Figura Obscura's naming, and it was for Krampus. And the Krampus box doesn't say Figura Obscura anywhere on it because that name didn't exist when that figure got designed and created. It was something that got generated during the marketing. And where are we going to put this on the website? That was the question. And I remember Cornboy coming up with the name Figura Obscura to mean secret figure. That's what it was supposed to mean, secret figure. And we joke about the fact that, especially in those early days, Chris was so protective of the secret. But to me, part of the idea of secret Figura Obscura, is you don't know what to expect, that it is going to be a surprise. With Ganesh here, not only was the character selection a surprise, but we've done a May drop for Figura Obscura the last few years. So to hit them up a little bit early and do it April, just an example of how we do try to keep people guessing, try to keep them on their feet with what we're going to do next with this line.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Cloud saying Obscura means hidden or dark. Freaks Figure saying the same thing. Yeah, I mean, dark wasn't the thought process. This isn't like clearly you've seen some of the characters like Ganesh here. There's nothing dark about Ganesh, but I guess dark in the sense of, hidden or obscured or secret. That was the mentality behind that name. So we got about 15 minutes left. Happy to answer any questions. I will also mention to everyone that we do have 2 events that we are going to be at this weekend. So I am actually traveling to New Jersey this weekend. I will be at ToyCon New Jersey. I'm only going to be there on the Saturday, but Four Horsemen Studios will be there both on Saturday and Sunday. I know Cookie's going to be there both days. A number of other people. Vern's going to be there. A number of people will be coming out to the Morristown Armory in Morristown, New Jersey. That's kind of our hometown show. That's Eric. That was the first time I ever met you back many years ago now at a ToyCon New Jersey. So I always love going back to that event. Obviously get to spend some time with Joe Viteri, my partner in Legions Con. So very much looking forward to that and looking forward to that show. Additionally, on Sunday of this week, we are going to be returning to Chicago for the Kane County Toy Show. That one is a street team show. That one is run by Travis Bowles and the My Wife Is Gonna Kill Me crew. Unfortunately, because of a bit of a scheduling change, we are not going to have a studio representative at that show, but there will be a ton of cool Legions out there, and Travis will certainly take care of you if you are in the Chicago area and you swing by there. So you can check all of this information out, all of the places we are going to be. Those are right on our website, sourcehorseman.com/events, if you ever know where we are going to be next. And we've got pretty much 8 shows in a couple months, 8 different states in the United States that we are going to be at. So hopefully we'll be coming close to you and you can come out and see us soon. Checking here, seeing what some of the comments are. A lot of requests, a lot of people just telling us kind of what they want from Figura Obscura. We love to see those requests and those ideas. Just keep in mind that we have no shortage of our own, although we will admit, Eric, that a lot of the requests that we see are already on our list.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it goes back to what you said earlier about being on the same wavelength with the fan base, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question.
So William is asking, saying, it's a great new body sculpt. Are there any thoughts of a reuse? And you addressed that earlier, that, you know, having new pieces, including this torso in the library, is going to allow us for cool future projects. So I imagine you've already started to think about ways that you could use this.
Yeah, I have some very specific ideas, multiple ones. So when that time and place is, I don't know yet, but I'm excited to get to it when it happens.
Brendan Higgins is in the chat, and he's saying lots of people meeting up this Saturday. Just look for us at the show. The show he's referring to is ToyCon New Jersey. So if you are going out to the show, there's definitely going to be some, Mythic meetups and some community gatherings happening. So be on the lookout for that. Let's see. So someone's asking, saying we need a fatty orc. And that's one of the things that we've discussed. I mean, we're talking about a Figura Obscura here, but one of the great things about Figura Obscura is it does create new library parts that we can use across the other lines. And those are things that we are excited about as well, is different proportions. Early on, because of the business realities of the line, you had to share those torsos. So the barbarian had the exact same build as the orc, and that had the exact same build as the shirtless dwarf. They all had the same torso. But we really are at the point now that we can start to explore some of those different sizes. And it's why I've been editing the Mythic Legion's first 10 years book, and it's been amazing to see what we've accomplished in that first decade. But I can't help but think about the fact that we're just getting started. Like, we've just scratched the surface. Because I feel like 10 years, those first 5 years were really like us just kind of getting the train on the tracks. And, it feels like it hasn't been 10 years since this thing's really, really been chugging along. And now that it's just going, it's really exciting for the variety we're going to be able to see.
I feel like there was a point, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, where I felt like we were kind of getting caught up with where I wanted to be with new parts. And I already feel like that's like outdated at this point. Like we're moving so quickly with, just updates, upgrades, innovations, new body types, new styles. Like it's exciting, but it's almost like I almost feel like I can't keep up with it at this point. Like there's going to be so many new things out there for customizers to start adding to their arsenals.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the neck joint on Ganesha here. Let's just think about that one point of articulation. The first good chunk of the line, every character had one of a couple necks, and those neck pegs were all slight variations on the same thing. You've redesigned neck pegs 5 times in the last couple releases, because as you're exploring this, you're trying new things, and we now have the ability to innovate on some of this stuff in a way that it just wasn't possible in the early days. So that's been very exciting for me to be able to see, as well as to see as you start tackling these parts. And without saying anything specifically, there have been a number of projects we've worked on that were supposed to use an existing piece that very quickly ended up becoming all new tooling because you were adding new parts and new innovations. That, to me, that's one of the most exciting parts of this second decade of the line, is that bit of creative freedom that you are allowed because of the support that our community has given us.
No question about it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're in a different era, and creatively, it's a different era because it's just, yeah. I mean, early on, the lack of variety in the parts forced a certain type of creativity. Now, being unleashed a little bit allows a different type of creativity.
Yeah.
Both have their strong points. Like they're both valid. But I'm enjoying being in this phase now.
Absolutely. Couple quick comments that I'm going to go through right here. So we've got Blake Recon Rage just saying, shout out going to all the West Coast Mythic meetup next weekend on May 3rd in Sacramento, California. Absolutely. That is next weekend. So I just mentioned the 2 shows we have this weekend. Next weekend, we have a show out in California run by our good friend Iz Ramirez. So you can, again, check that out at sourcehorseman.com/events. Moku Moku is saying, how do the skeletons work? So the skeletons, the breakdown of those, there's some really interesting stuff that's going to be coming out in the Mythic Legions, the role-playing game. So we've been a little quiet about that as we've been working on things behind the scenes. But Cameron, who's been working on that, he's tackled some elements of the world and the stories that, Eric, we never really had to address in the stories and bios that we've worked on thus far. Building out this whole world to be a playable world has really opened up some new ideas and some new aspects that I'm very excited about. And while I'm not going to fully answer that skeleton question tonight, what I can say is one of the things that stuck out to me was some of the mechanics that Cameron put around skeletons and how they actually operate within this world.
That's one of the game from a game standpoint, it's going to be awesome, right? Like it's what Cameron's doing, it's if you're a gamer, you're in for a treat. And hopefully if you're not a gamer, you're going to give it a try and maybe become a gamer.
Yeah.
But what he's required to do and what he's doing creatively, like within the structure of the game, I think that even if you're not a gamer, even if you try it and you're not into it, whatever, I think the book for the game is going to be fascinating for people because it goes into a level of use the word mechanics, like kind of the mechanical details of everyday life in a way that the bios don't hit. Like telling stories doesn't necessarily hit it. The figures don't. So like you're going to be able to like, how does magic work? Like what types of magic are there? How does time work? Like all these really, in some ways, like base elements of the world, but we haven't really had reason to explore it. And now all of a sudden you're going to have these detailed accountings of how these things work. And, even, parts of mythos and it just makes the world richer. And so again, like I said, if you're a gamer, if you want to play this game, it's going to be killer. But even if you're not, there's something really, I think amazing, going on with this stuff.
Absolutely. Interesting question here saying, is there a time frame when we will hear more on Infinite Legions? So there certainly is a time frame, and while we're not ready to tell you exactly what it is, we can tell you to pay attention because it's going to be pretty soon.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to, what we were.
I'm just deciding what to say and not to say.
Exactly.
There's some cool stuff.
Yes,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool things happening behind the scenes with, just how we're going to present it, and just really make it a full scale launch.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things coming. It's crazy to think that it's only the end of April. We're through, a third of the year. We look at what we've gotten so far this year. The first Figura Obscura of the year that we're talking about tonight, obviously the Beathair Dragon, but even beyond that, we got the first 10 years book already. We got the Cosmic Character Packs. There's been a lot of very, very exciting things that we've seen so far in 2025. To think that we're only 1/3 through the year, very, very exciting. We've got a lot more stuff coming up. Eric, thank you so much for joining us again this evening. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to check it out. And of course, to everyone who has purchased their Figura Obscura Ganesh. So I will give you a quick heads up. We have very few of these left in the store right now. So these figures are exclusive to storehorseman.com. Like we do with every Figura Obscura, this first edition is only sold direct by Four Horsemen Studios. One thing we did do with this particular drop, though, because we know a lot of people are still recovering, a lot of wallets are still recovering from the Beathair pre-order, we did hold back a good chunk of these figures for a second sale drop that we are hoping to do sometime next month in May. So if for one reason or another you missed out on this first drop, don't worry too much. You will have another shot at it. But if you want one from this first round, which is shipping now, you're going to want to get over to Store Horseman before these are sold out for good. With that, we're going to say goodnight. Eric, any last words?
I mean, I'm with this particular project, I've been really excited to see the positive response to it. I was very excited about this one going in. Just to see the support on it, because it is a peaceful character. It's not a big brute weapon wielding character. I appreciate just the support that this figure's gotten, and just the kind words and the overall just positive energy surrounding it.
Absolutely.
It's been rewarding to see just see it so well received. So thank you to everybody for that.
And now, Eric, is one of our favorite times, because now that these are going to start arriving, we get to see all the wonderful photography. Again, we talked at the start about kind of the process of Figura Obscura. Now we're entering that phase where all of the wonderful community, the fan community, all of the toy photography community that are going to get their hands on this, to see what they're able to do with these figures consistently blows us away. So now we get to kind of sit back a little bit. We've put our piece out there. We get to sit back and see what other wonderful artists do with it. So that is always a delight.
I've been loving seeing all the Necronominus photography. There's so much good stuff out there.
Yeah.
No shortage at all. And so, again, I enjoy seeing, from going from, the darkest, most death-centric, subject matter possible to a much lighter, tone with this figure. So, I'm looking forward to seeing, how people, kind of pivot and switch gears to, to this one.
It'll be a change of pace for sure. All right, everyone. With that, we will see you all soon. I'll be back here next week for another Mystic Conversations. And once again, I will be in New Jersey this weekend at ToyCon, New Jersey. We hope to see you there.
Awesome.